Most people hear the name Tractor Supply and think they already know what the store is. They picture tractor parts, farm equipment, maybe some tools on a shelf, and a store mostly built for farmers. And to be fair, that's part of the story, but it's definitely not the whole story. Walk into a Tractor Supply today and you quickly realize something different is happening. You see dog food stacked high near the front. You see work boots, fencing, feed, propane, lawn, garden supplies, chicks, tools, trailers, animal medicine, truck accessories, outdoor gear, and seasonal products. You see customers pulling up in pickup trucks. You see people buying feed for horses, food for dogs, supplies for chickens, fencing for a few acres, and workwear for jobs that aren't happening behind a desk. And that's where the story gets interesting, because Tractor Supply isn't just selling products, it's serving a way of life. And in many ways, it understands that way of life better than most investors do. A lot of investors look at a secondary or tertiary market and start with the same questions. How many people live there? What's the household income? Is the population growing? Those are important questions, but Tractor Supply seems to ask a different question first. How do people live here? Do they own land? Do they have animals? Do they fix things themselves? Do they garden? Do they hunt, haul, build, repair, mow, feed, fence, raise, and maintain? That's the difference. Tractor Supply understands that in hometown America, lifestyle can be just as important as population. And for retail real estate investors, that's a lesson worth studying. At Rockstep, we talk a lot about hometown America. Secondary markets, tertiary markets, county seats, small cities, regional hubs, places that don't always show up on the first page of an institutional investor's target list. These markets are easy to overlook because they often don't fit the standard urban growth story. They might not have explosive population growth or the density of a major metro. They may not have luxury retail, trophy office towers, or a skyline that makes investors feel comfortable. But that doesn't mean they lack demand. It means the demand looks different. In many hometown markets, demand is practical. It's tied to daily life. People still spend money. They just spend it differently than someone living in the middle of a dense urban neighborhood. That's where investors sometimes get tripped up. They're trained to look for density. Retailers are trained to look for customers. And those aren't always the same thing. Tractor Supply is a perfect example. As of early 26, Tractor Supply operated more than 2,400 stores across 4,900 states, along with 200 PetSense by Tractor Supply stores. The company reported $15 billion in 2025 sales and more than 52,000 team members. That's not a tiny niche business. That's a major national retailer built around a customer many investors still underestimate. To understand Tractor Supply, you have to go back to the beginning. The company started in 1938 when Charles Schmidt Sr. launched a mail-order tractor parts business from his kitchen table. Farmers and rural customers needed parts. They needed access to products. They needed a reliable place to get what they needed to keep working. By 1940, that mail-order business had grown into a retail store in Minot, North Dakota. Tractor Supply was built around customers who had jobs to do and problems to solve. That's still the heart of the business today. Over time, the company changed because America changed. Agriculture consolidated, small farms became fewer, suburbs pushed outward, more families moved into rural and semi-rural settings without being full-time farmers. People bought acreage, they kept horses, they raised chickens, they gardened, they built shops and barns, they bought trailers and tools, fencing, and outdoor equipment. They had dogs, cats, goats, cows, horses, and backyard chickens. They may not have called themselves farmers, but they were living a rural lifestyle. And Tractor Supply widened its definition of the customer. The company didn't abandon its roots, it expanded them. It moved from being a store mostly associated with tractor parts and farm needs into a broader rural lifestyle retailer. And that phrase matters, rural lifestyle, because a Tractor Supply customer isn't one single type of person. It's not just a farmer. It's a whole ecosystem of customers tied together by how they live. This is the most important part of the story. To understand why Tractor Supply works, you have to understand who walks through the door. There's the landowner. Maybe they own 5 acres outside of town. Maybe they have a long driveway, a barn, a fence line, a garden, a few animals, and a list of weekend projects that never really ends. Then there's the pet owner. This is a huge part of the business. Dog food, cat food, treats, flea and tick products, pet medicine, beds, collars, grooming, animal care. For many customers, Tractor Supply isn't an occasional trip. It's part of the regular pet care routine. Then there's the hobby farmer. This person may not make their living farming, but they still raise chickens or goats or bees, horses, or small livestock. They need feed, bedding, fencing. Then there's the DIY homeowner. This is the person who fixes things personally. They don't call someone for every little project. They patch it. They build it, replace it, wire it, haul it, mow it, paint it, repair it. They need a store that understands hands-on living. Then there's the trade person, the contractor, the landscaper, the mechanic, the person who needs boots, gloves, tools, truck accessories, storage, workwear, and supplies that can take abuse. That's the customer. And that customer is more common than many investors realize. Tractor Supply's genius that it understands the customer's chores. It understands what has to get done on a Saturday morning. It understands that if the fence breaks, it needs to be fixed. If the dog food runs out, it needs to be replaced. If the chickens need feed, that trip can't wait 2 weeks. That kind of demand isn't flashy, but it's durable. And durable demand is exactly what retail real estate investors should care about. One reason Tractor Supply is such a strong case study is that much of its demand is recurring. A customer might delay buying a new mower, they might hold off on a big ticket tool, but they don't stop feeding their dog. They don't stop feeding their chickens. That's why Tractor Supply's product mix is so important. It's not built only around big ticket discretionary spending. A large part of the business is consumable, usable, edible products. Things that get used up, things that need to be replaced, things tied to animals, homes, land, routine maintenance. That creates repeat traffic. And repeat traffic is the foundation of strong retail. This is also where pets become a major part of the story. The American pet economy is enormous. The U.S. pet industry reached roughly $158 billion in 2025, and industry surveys estimate that around 95 million U.S. households own a pet. That matters because pet spending is one of the most resilient categories in retail. People may cut back in other areas before they cut back on their animals, and Tractor Supply sits right in the middle of that behavior. It's not only selling to farmers and ranchers, it's selling to dog owners and cat owners, horse owners, chicken owners, goat owners, and families who treat animal care as a normal part of household spending. That's one of the reasons the model works so well in hometown markets. The demand isn't just rural in the old agricultural sense. It's rural lifestyle demand. It's practical, emotional, recurring. It's tied to identity. For a lot of customers, Tractor Supply isn't just where they buy products. It's a store that understands how they live. This is where the title of the video really matters. Why does Tractor Supply understand America better than most investors? Because many investors look at the market from the outside in. They see a town of 20 or 30,000 people. They see lower density. They see fewer national retailers. They see a smaller buyer pool. They see less institutional liquidity. And they say this market is just too small. But Tractor Supply looks at that same market and sees a different picture. It sees the 20 or 30-minute trade area. It sees rural households. It sees pickup trucks, pet ownership, landowners, people with barns and fences, horses, workshops, gardens, acreage, animals, and projects. It sees a customer base with specific needs that aren't fully captured by population numbers. That's the lesson. In hometown America, demand is often hidden inside lifestyle. A spreadsheet might show modest population growth, but it may not show how many people own 5 acres. It may not show how many families raise chickens. It may not show how many households have 3 dogs. Investors sometimes underwrite the census data. Tractor Supply underwrites the chores. And that's a much more useful way to understand these markets because the customer may not look like a top-tier metro consumer, but they still spend money. They just spend it differently. Tractor Supply also works because the real estate fits the customer. This isn't a retailer that needs to be in the densest urban shopping district. It needs access, visibility, parking, room for trucks and trailers, and outdoor display. It needs to be easy to get in and out. It often fits well along a main road or highway corridor or edge of town retail node. That's very different from urban retail. You're not necessarily looking for a walkable storefront. You're looking for a place where you can pull in with a truck, park easily, load up, and get back home. That's why Tractor Supply is such a good reminder that not all retail should be judged by the same urban rules. Small-town retail is often drive-time retail. The customer may come from 15, 20, or 30 minutes away. The store may serve multiple small communities. The trade area may be much larger than the town's city limits, and the site has to match that behavior. Good access matters, parking matters, outdoor space matters, visibility matters, co-tenancy matters. A Tractor Supply near Walmart, a grocery store, an auto parts store, a QSR cluster, a feed store, a hardware store, or a highway intersection may be part of a broader daily needs corridor. That's what investors should be studying, not just the tenant, the whole ecosystem. When Tractor Supply enters a market, it can tell you something. It may signal that the trade area has more demand than outsiders realize. It may signal meaningful base of rural homeowners, landowners, pet owners, and DIY customers. It may signal that the town pulls from a wider region. It may signal that the customer base is practical, needs-driven, underserved by traditional retailer. For investors, that matters. But the opportunity isn't always buying the Tractor Supply box itself. Sometimes the opportunity is what Tractor Supply reveals. What else does that customer need? Pet services, veterinary clinics, grooming, car washes, auto parts, oil change, QSR, coffee, storage, hardware, medical service. A strong Tractor Supply may help validate a customer base that supports other nearby retail. That's where the real estate gets interesting. Maybe there's an older strip center nearby with below market rents and decent access. Maybe there's a pad site that could support a quick service restaurant. Maybe the corridor has strong traffic but weak tenant mix. Maybe the market has been overlooked because the population looks small, but the retail behavior is stronger than expected. This is how retailers can become market signals. That's why Tractor Supply matters. It's not just selling dog food and fencing, it's revealing a trade area. The other reason investors should pay attention is that Tractor Supply is still investing in physical stores. In fiscal 25, Tractor Supply opened 99 new stores. For 26, the company planned approximately 100 more stores, along with remodels, garden center transformations, distribution investments, and continued investment in store and digital technology. That's important because we still hear the old retail narrative all the time. Stores are dead, e-commerce won, physical retail's obsolete. But Tractor Supply shows why that narrative is too simple. For some categories, digital is powerful. For others, the store is still central. If you need feed today, you may not want to wait for shipping. If you need fencing, propane, work boots, animal medicine, or a part for a project, the local store matters. If you're buying products that are heavy, bulky, urgent, seasonal, or tied to an animal's care, proximity matters. In many hometown markets, Tractor Supply becomes one of the few national retailers that truly understands those needs. The internet can ship products, but it can't fully replace a local store that understands the customer, the animal, the weather, the land, the chore. That's the physical retail advantage, and Tractor Supply has built its business around it. Tractor Supply also sits at the intersection of several larger trends. The first is the renewed interest in rural and non-metro living. Since 2020, non-metro areas have seen population gains driven by migration, though growth is uneven and varies by region. That doesn't mean every small town is booming, but it does mean the old assumption that all demand is moving only towards the largest cities is wrong. Some people want space. Some want affordability. Some want land. Some want a slower pace. Some want to be closer to outdoor recreation. Tractor Supply benefits from that lifestyle shift. The second trend is pet ownership. Pets aren't just a side category anymore. They're a major part of household spending. And Tractor Supply has leaned into that with pet food, pet supplies, pet scents, veterinary services, animal health. The third trend is DIY and self-reliance. In many hometown markets, people are more likely to fix or build, maintain, haul, mow, repair, and work on their own property. That creates demand for tools, supplies, equipment, workwear, and parts. Fourth trend is outdoor living and land ownership. The customer may not be a farmer, but they still maintain land. They garden. They may raise chickens. They may keep horses. They may build a fence, repair a gate, maintain a pasture. Tractor Supply is strong because it sits at the center of all these trends. Rural lifestyle, pet care, DIY, land ownership, outdoor living, practical spending, repeat trips, that's a durable combination. Now, we should be careful. A Tractor Supply in a market doesn't automatically mean every nearby real estate deal is good. It's a positive signal, but it doesn't eliminate risk. That's why investors have to separate the market signal from the specific deal. Tractor Supply may validate the customer. It may validate the trade area. It may show there's durable rural lifestyle demand, but it doesn't fix bad real estate. So, how should investors use Tractor Supply as a framework? Here's the Tractor Supply test. First, does the market have rural lifestyle demand? Look for acreage homes, pets, livestock, gardens, workshops, pickup trucks, trailers, DIY behavior, trades, outdoor living, and land maintenance. Second, is a trade area bigger than the town population? Don't stop at the city limits. Look at 15, 20, 30-minute drive times. Ask what smaller communities feed into that market. Ask how far people are already driving. Third, are essential categories creating repeat trips? Fourth, is there retail leakage? Were customers previously driving elsewhere for these products? If so, Tractor Supply may be recapturing spending that already existed. Fifth, is the site truck friendly? Six, what else follows the customer? Pet care, auto service, QSR, coffee. Rural lifestyle demand doesn't stop at one store. Seventh, is there replacement tenant depth? If one tenant leaves, can the building or corridor still work? And eighth, can you buy at a basis that respects the risk? That's the most important question. Hometown America may be overlooked, but that doesn't mean every deal is cheap enough. Price still matters, basis still matters, downside still matters. So why does Tractor Supply understand America better than most investors? Because it understands the customer behind the market. It understands that not every valuable retail market looks dense, urban, institutional. Some of the strongest demand is practical, recurring, local, needs-based. It's tied to how people actually live, taking care of animals, maintaining land, fixing things, gardening, working outside, owning a home, raising chickens, feeding dogs, hauling supplies, making a life in places that don't always show up on Wall Street's favorite maps. That's hometown America. And Tractor Supply has built a national business by taking that customer seriously. For retail real estate investors, the lesson isn't simply to chase Tractor Supply. The lesson is to understand the lifestyle demand it serves, study the trade area it validates, look for the adjacent tenants and real estate that may benefit from the same customer. And remember that demand doesn't always look like luxury retail or high-rise apartments or a trophy shopping district. Sometimes the best retail signal in a small town is a store that understands what people actually need to get through the week. That's why Tractor Supply matters, because it's not just a store for farmers, it's a window into how millions of people live. And if investors want to understand hometown America, they should pay attention to the retailers that already do.